What's the best order to learn static gymnastic skills? In this video, I will explain the order I recommend, which we successfully used over many years with more than 1,000 students. This subject is rather complex and multiple paths exist. But this video aims to draw your attention to consistency and fundamentals because there is indeed a sequence that will allow you to progress more easily, quickly and safely. In this video, you can learn about a unique approach as well as skills that you may not see mentioned elsewhere, and I'm going to explain their importance. As you may know, every static skill has its progressions, providing excellent opportunities for gradual mastery. However, there are skills that are prerequisites for others, so by learning them in advance, you'll be able to master your desired exercise with much more confidence, experience, and transfer effects. That's why I like to make the following recommendations. Before we start, it's important to provide context. This video is only about static skills. Dynamic advanced exercises like the muscle up, handstand push-up, or one-arm chin-up, etc. will be the subject of another video. If you regularly watch my videos, you probably know why. Static skills stress your body and nervous system differently than the dynamic skills I mentioned. Each group has its own place in training, that's why I discuss them in separate videos. I talked about how to structure your training and the placement of the skills belonging to the two separate groups within this structure in a previous video. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out or download the app where you can progress according to these principles. One more important disclaimer, these exercises require joint preparation similar to basic exercises from my previous videos. Only with joint preparation should you start the very first exercise, just like the general push-up, which you likely heard about in my previous videos. You can find joint preparation exercises for every joint on the channel. Now, let's see the recommended order for the most popular static gymnastics exercises, where I'm going to briefly summarize what they are good for and why they are recommended in this order. The first exercise is the LSIT. This is an excellent entry into the world of static elements, building scapular stability and significant core strength in a not too intense straight arm position, while conditioning your nervous system for simultaneous activation and tension of multiple muscle groups. In gymnastics routines, the LSIT is a resting element, usually followed by press to handstand. Through increased flexibility and compression strength, you can progress from the LSIT all the way to the mana, and it also has some transfer effects to other exercises from the press to handstand to the front lever and planche. I talk about the detailed breakdown of the exercise in a separate video. The second exercise is the shoulder stand, an underrated, often unknown and neglected exercise that's good to learn before the handstand. It helps to get used to the inverted position, which is useful for the handstands, and develops balance in a mechanically advantageous, easily maintainable position while building upper body strength and giving the shoulders a good load. In addition to balance, you can practice here how to keep your body straight, tilt your pelvis when inverted, which is a challenge for many people. This is also the lower endpoint of the full range of motion handstand push-ups, so you'll feel its transfer effects later here as well. I talk about the detailed breakdown of the exercise in a separate video. The third exercise is the elbow lever. We could call this the beginner's planche. In this easy to learn position, you can learn the correct scapular position, which is depressed and abducted with rounded upper back, important in both the elbow lever and later the planche, but here you can support yourself on your elbows and maintain balance. The position of the legs in the elbow lever is a good practice as they perfectly imitate the position in the planche. I talk about the detailed breakdown of the exercise in a separate video. I would make these three basic static exercises mandatory for anyone starting gymnastics or calisthenics training before embarking on such celebrity exercises as the handstand, planche or levers, and I hope the reasons I mentioned make it clear why. This is about as important a recommendation as completing a full joint preparation program before the entire process, as without it, even these exercises won't go as smoothly and painlessly. You can start these three exercises simultaneously, possibly in the skill block of a workout, or practice them as a separate skill training. Once you mastered all three, you can combine them in combinations on multiple equipments. You will find separate videos about this on the channel. Once you've mastered all three exercises, you have the static basics and you'll have an easier time with the celebrity exercises. You can now master those in any order you like, but I'll still show you a recommended order. Let's see it. The fourth exercise is the handstand. Yes, if you're done with the shoulder stand, then finally you can start working on the handstand. Okay, you know you could have started it without the shoulder stand too, but believe me, it's good to have the shoulder stand. This will be a longer process because maintaining balance requires serious concentration. You need to pay attention to a lot of key points and automate them during the performance of the handstand, but I have already talked about these in several videos and I will continue to do so. The main thing is that you can gain an enormous body awareness, you can strengthen your shoulders, which can be great later, for example in the planche. The handstand is obviously a prerequisite of the press to handstand and freestanding handstand push-ups. You can also practice the handstand as part of the skill block or even as part of a separate training session. For the entire process and further tips, check out my previous videos and subscribe for the future videos. The fifth exercise is the back lever. You may not want to learn this exercise, but I will tell you a few benefits that may tempt you. One is that it can be learned quite quickly, and I think it looks just as good as the front lever. The other is that it strengthens the biceps and the connective tissues in the stretched arm position, especially when performed with underhand grip, which will have an excellent transfer effect to the planche, press to handstand, and even to the iron cross. Not to mention the aesthetic benefits, as it stresses the biceps isometrically in an extreme stretched position, which is an efficient way of building muscle. The example of ring specialists show this well. The third benefit is that in terms of scapula position, you have to maintain the same depressed and abducted position that you will also need in the planche, but here you are in a hanging position. The fourth is that the same applies to the whole body. You will have to hold your legs against gravity, just like in the planche, but here, again, your body is in a hanging position. You can practice this element as part of your skill block or when you're skill training along with other exercises. The next three exercises are the human flag, the front lever, and the planche. If you have the basics mentioned earlier, thanks to the progressions, you can start any of these exercises, but based on the experiences of my students, we are progressing in increasing order of difficulty. The sixth exercise is the human flag. Surprisingly, with the right preparation, it can be learned quite quickly. The lower, supporting side, special shoulder and scapular strength is key, which is strengthened by appropriate progressions. In addition, the core strength is extremely important, particularly in relation to the back extensors and oblique muscles. Without these, the risk of injury increases significantly. Generally, the wider the grip, the easier, but too wide grip also makes the execution more difficult. You have to find the sweet spot. You can also practice this as part of your skill block or when you're skill training along with other exercises. The last two elements I talk about in this video are the front lever and the planche. It is true that some people are better in pushing exercises and others in pulling exercises, and based on this, they find it easier to learn one than the other. However, objectively, the front lever is still considered easier than the planche. You will see why in a moment. The seventh exercise is the front lever. In this case, you should aim for maximal scapular depression and adduction, even though it doesn't usually happen due to the mechanically disadvantageous position, but focusing on it will definitely help. It makes a big difference that you have your lats and chest, which help to maintain the position. The triceps is also responsible for extending the arms, and besides these, of course, your core needs to be extremely strong, which can be greatly strengthened by dragon flags. Due to the involvement of large muscles, the front lever is still considered a bit easier than our last exercise. The eighth exercise is the planche. Here, the connective tissues and joints get much more stress due to the supported straight arm position, and the proper execution of the exercise depends on smaller muscles, mostly of the front part of the deltoid and the serratus anterior. We can say that due to these, it takes longer to recover from practicing, so in addition to the difficulty of the skill, it also teaches patience in the process. Many people practice the front lever and the planche at the same time. Since they perfectly complement each other, they can be trained together well. Similarly to push-ups and rows or dips and pull-ups, the planche is a good antagonist in the front lever as part of the skill training. In addition to these, of course, there are other advanced, somewhat unrealistic gymnastics elements like the iron cross, Maltese, or inverted cross, but these are the topics of another video. 99.9% of people probably don't even dream about these exercises. There might have already been some among the skills mentioned in this video. However, generally speaking, these are the most desired exercises which I recommend in the order I mentioned earlier. I hope my reasoning makes sense to you. In general, it's worth practicing the static skills 2-3 times a week with rest days in between. It might be obvious, but the more skills you want to learn at once, the more you have to distribute your energy, so in this case, the progress might be slower than if you focused on 1-2 skills at once. Each skill has its own prerequisites, joint preparation specifics, and unique progressions, which I will talk about in separate videos. If you want to get started right now, starting with joint preparation, you want to build a shredded physique like gymnasts have, download the Gymnastics Method app in the App Store or Google Play Store, become a member, and get full access to all programs, tutorials, series, and much more. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. If you haven't watched my earlier videos I mentioned, check them out on the screen now.